him into custody. They hadn't determined a motive, nor did they have a murder weapon, but they were sure that Kohberger was the killer. A police chief, when asked about other potential suspects, claimed, quote, that the individual in custody had committed those horrible crimes, unquote. What type of public relations is this? Do you have DNA found on a knife sheath? No, you don't. If we put this into perspective, a citizen is arrested for committing horrible crimes, without any evidence the citizen did so. That is the definition of an unlawful arrest. How dare a police chief claim that, at this point, a citizen is guilty of murdering someone? And he didn't have to make that statement, even if he believes Kohberger was the killer. It's about upholding integrity as officers of the law. He should have stated, at this point, with respect to our investigation, we will not be answering questions about the suspect in custody at this moment. This depicts the police department as professional, and also, it keeps a sense of integrity for the suspect, who may be an innocent man. Remember, innocent until proven guilty. You may say, his arrest came when DNA was discovered, right? Trust me, you will come back to this analysis, and understand why it was an unlawful arrest. How can you be sure Kohberger, and his white Hyundai Elantra, was the vehicle spotted fleeing the crime scene, out of perhaps 10,000 white Hyundai Elantras? It's impossible, especially if you have no evidence, or information, to believe, or in their words, no, Kohberger did it. Here is what they were supposed to do, when attempting to find the killer. Authorities spot a white Hyundai Elantra, Kohberger's, which matches the description of the vehicle spotted in surveillance. They pull Kohberger over, and proceed to investigate. Kohberger asked, "Officer, is there something wrong?" The officer replies, "Sorry for the inconvenience, but your vehicle matches the description of a murder suspect, in Moscow, Idaho." Kohberger, of course, would claim he is innocent, and doesn't know anything about it. But, the officer has to investigate, because he could be, key phrase, could be, the killer. The officer replies, "I understand, but I'm gonna need you to cut the vehicle off for a moment, and place your hands on the steering wheel." Kohberger, distraught, obliges. The officer proceeds to ask for license and registration, so he can check his background. He returns to the vehicle, and asked Kohberger to step out of the vehicle. Kohberger, not sure of what's going on, asked, "What did I do?" "I haven't killed anyone." The officer replies, "We will get to the bottom of it, sir, just bringing you in for a few questions. If your story pans out, you'll be free to go." Kohberger, a bit agitated, decides it's best to cooperate, and they head to the police station. This procedure was not Kohberger being arrested, no. The officer simply detained Kohberger, so he can ask him questions at the police station. And this is how their first encounter with Kohberger was supposed to go. But of course, this is not how it went, as we know. In the scenario where Kohberger is literally the killer, the authorities would pull him over. "Sir, I'm gonna need you to step out of the vehicle. Place your hands behind your back for me," and proceeds to handcuff Kohberger. He is arrested, and taken into custody. Arrested, held without the possibility of bail, and faced murder charges. A blatant violation of Kohberger's rights. The authorities obtained a search warrant, which led to Kohberger's arrest, at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. Let me say that again, a search warrant, which led to Kohberger's arrest. Police seized a number of new items at the home, including medical-style gloves, a black sweatshirt, size 13 Nike sneakers, and they also took a buccal swab. They collected a few more items, as they proceeded to arrest him for the murders. Now here is the fishy part of the raid. Officers rummaged through garbage, obtaining DNA from trash. They had previously obtained DNA from a knife sheath, which was left in one of the victim's bedroom, right? They matched both DNA samples, and allegedly found a match. The fishy part here is why didn't they just take a sample of DNA from Kohberger, to see if it directly matched the DNA found at the crime scene? Well, this is where the shady detective work comes in. My colleagues have analyzed this scenario, and I will second their conclusion. The reason they didn't sample any DNA from Kohberger to match what was found at the home, is because they used the DNA of Kohberger's father, and then, get this, placed that DNA strand onto a knife sheath that was placed there, and then report that there was DNA on a knife sheath found in one of the victim's bedrooms. Oh, you think this is impossible? He was arrested December 30th of last year, right? When did they discover the DNA at the crime scene? Anyone has the official date? Don't worry, we have the receipts. Before the authorities raided Kohberger's parents' home, they were monitoring his activity, dating back to approximately December 10th through the 16th. Now at this point, before any DNA had been obtained at the crime scene, nor any vital information or evidence against their target, you have authorities rounded up, following Koberger. Yet, since at this time there is no proof, his white Hyundai Elantra was the vehicle spotted in surveillance, there are at least thousands of possible killers out there. Anyway, let's find out when the DNA was discovered at the crime scene, and when the DNA was obtained at his parents' home. Let's examine together the timeline. Quote, on December 27th, Pennsylvania agents recovered trash from the Koberger house in the Poconos, and it was matched to DNA at the crime scene. On December 28th, the paperwork says. A single source of DNA was found on a knife sheath that was found in the bed next to one of the victims, police said. Unquote. Now, it's easy to suggest that authorities had already obtained the DNA prior, and went to his parents' home, and discovered the additional DNA. Yet, they wouldn't have to match his father's DNA, all they had to do was sample Koberger's DNA, right? After all, he is the killer, right? You are trying to prove he was physically there, not his father, right? But, I literally searched for the actual date of when the DNA was found at the crime scene, and it doesn't give a specific date in the investigation. But, there are dates of each progression in the timeline of the investigation, such as November 13th, November 30th, December 16th, December 27th, December 28th, and the date of his arrest, December 30th. The reason there is no date of the DNA collected at the home, and just a report of it found, is because they obtained the DNA collected December 27th at his parents' home, and then the next day, December 28th, planted that DNA at the crime scene. As a result, he's guilty of murder. They were so sloppy though, because the report even claims that they matched the DNA at his parents' home on the 27th, as a match with the DNA at the crime scene on December 28th. Translation here. We collected DNA at his parents' home on the 27th, then ran back to the crime scene, planted the knife sheath, then dropped a sample of that DNA on the planted knife sheath on the 28th.